It was looking like another Martin Truex Jr. Monday. Maybe Tyler Reddick was going to snap his winless streak, but no, I should have known better than to pick against a Ford at Michigan. How's it going, y'all? My name is Eric. Welcome to Out of the Groove. I'm back home from Michigan, ready to talk about all things Michigan. But first, we have to thank our sponsor, Toxic Waste Candy. My friend Brennan Poole was on the show last week to unveil his all-new Toxic Waste paint scheme that will race this weekend at Indianapolis. The official die cast is still available for pre-order. You can click that top link down in the description. In honor of Toxic Waste sponsoring our race car this weekend, I decided to taste test some of their most sour products recently. First up, oh, my eyes are starting to water. Okay, after a moment, it starts to get more sweet. I'm gonna put the caution flag out for this one. Next up, let's go gummy bears. Ooh, pineapple. See, that's just delicious. A little sour for sure, but green flag. Anyone can enjoy this one. Oh my, nuclear fusion. Oh my gosh, they come in these little hazmat suits. Bottoms up. My face turning red. Oh my gosh, everything's going a little cross-eyed. I don't know between these two. I think I gotta put the red flag out on this one. My gosh, watch out. Sour at your own risk. Thank you so much to Toxic Waste for sponsoring the show. Be sure to pre-order that Brennan Poole Toxic Waste diecast by clicking the link down in the description below. Now let's talk Michigan. I had an entire flight, a delayed flight, to digest what I watched this afternoon and yesterday in person. When I was a kid, honestly, even up until a couple of years ago, this summer stretch of races, it used to be from like the first Pocono race to the second Pocono race, was always sort of a dry portion of the schedule. Like you had Daytona over July 4th weekend in the middle that was exciting, that everyone looked forward to. But beyond that, Pocono, New Hampshire, sometimes twice, Sonoma, Michigan. Boy, the narrative has changed quickly. Now I look forward to Pocono. I was looking forward to Michigan, and Michigan this weekend, aside from the weather, which you can't seem to escape that anywhere in the country now, Michigan did not disappoint. I wish I could have stayed for the conclusion of the race today, but I've got a lot going on this week, as you can tell. Moving, but even watching this race on TV, or in this case on my phone in the airport, it did not disappoint. We'll spend plenty of time in a few moments analyzing the playoff bubble because things have shifted quite a bit. We'll look at the top finishers, give some shout outs, but for the second week in a row, let's begin with Roush Fenway Keselowski Racing, specifically, once again, Christopher Buescher. From my neck of the woods in Texas. Actually, Texas is so big. I think Chris Buescher grew up like 4 hours from where I live. That's how big this state is. Chris Buescher gets the win today. His second win of the season, his second win in a row. He has doubled his career Cup Series win total over the past 8 days. He held off a hard-charging Martin Truex Jr. in the closing laps. Martin Truex Jr. was going for his third Monday win of the season. MTJ probably had the best car, but he could not find a way around Chris Buescher and that number 17 RFK Ford. Ford continues their string of Michigan International Speedway dominance. It's been Harvick for the last few years. Blaney got himself a win a couple seasons ago, but now Roush is back on the board. And that's kind of the theme. Roush is back. RFK is here. Some of y'all accused me of fanboying last week after Chris Buescher won at Richmond. And yes, I'll admit, I always love seeing the 17 in victory lane. I'm nostalgic. But I don't think I was fanboying. I've just seen how good RFK has been. Remember this video I did a few months ago? I said it months ago. RFK is the best all-around Ford organization in NASCAR. They continue to prove me more and more right. Back-to-back wins. Brad Keselowski got himself a top 5 today as well. RFK is here. Roush is back. Are they championship contenders? There should be at least one RFK car in the round of 8. You look at how the races break down. The round of 16 has Bristol. Both Keselowski and Buescher dominated there last year. The round of 12 has a road course, Charlotte Roval, which Chris Buescher historically could be good at. Talladega, the RFK Fords are always strong on super speedway. So the races line up nicely. Round of 8 is not out of the question. And even in that round of 8, you got a couple of mile and a halves. I mean, it's highly unlikely, but Chris Buescher especially could sneak into the championship 4. This is the first time since probably Carl Edwards left after 2014 that a Roush driver could actually, somewhat realistically, win the Cup Series championship. Roush is back. I'm going to step off my soapbox for a moment here. It is worth mentioning that this time last year, we were saying very much the same thing about a different Ford driver and team. Remember, Kevin Harvick last year won these same 2 races, also back-to-back. They were his only 2 wins all of last year. This time last year, we all thought Kevin Harvick, all of a sudden, was a legitimate championship 4 contender. Kevin Harvick was back. Well, the round of 16 did not go his way, so Kevin Harvick, no, in fact, was not back last year, but he had a couple really good races. Can RFK do what Harvick couldn't last year? Can RFK prove that these 2 weekends weren't flukes? Can they continue to contend for top 5s and maybe even wins the next 3 weeks? Then when the playoffs begin, can they run well at Darlington? We expect them to run well at Bristol. Can RFK continue this success, not just through the end of the regular season, but into that first round of the playoffs? That's unfortunately where Kevin Harvick and team failed last year. So I'm very high on RFK. I have been all season. It feels good to have my early season opinion somewhat vindicated. But I need to caution both myself and everyone else out there. We were really high on Kevin Harvick this time last year too, and that unfortunately did not work out for one reason or another. But congratulations to Chris Buescher, one of the top 5 best cars today. He did not have the best car. I think Martin Truex Jr. likely had the best car, but Chris Buescher's team played the strategy right. Buescher himself didn't make any mistakes those final 30, 35 laps. Even when Truex got side by side with him, Buescher didn't panic. He just held his line, kept his foot in it, and that car stuck. Because his car was good. I think the RFK Fords, we saw Keselowski coming on strong late. The RFK Fords did catch up to Truex there in the closing stretch, but Truex was still clearly the better car. I want to talk about Martin Truex Jr. for just a moment. Cool, calm, clean Martin Truex finishes second. In the closing laps of this race, I was thinking back to Pocono just a few weeks ago. Martin Truex Jr. had a front row seat when his teammate Denny Hamlin, pushed Kyle Larson up out of the groove and into the wall. After the race, Truex, kind of smiling about it, called that move a little dirty. But he also admitted that that was the only way probably Denny Hamlin was going to win. So in the closing laps today, especially when Truex got side by side with Chris Buescher for the lead, I thought back to Pocono and wondered if Martin Truex Jr. would break his own personal code. Clean and pristine Martin Truex Jr., would he slide up the track, risk dooring someone for the win the same way his teammate did a few weeks back? He didn't. Martin Truex Jr. had the exact same opportunity Denny Hamlin had a couple weeks ago, did not take it. He raced Chris Buescher very hard, very fairly, and very cleanly, and he came home second. I'm happy for Chris Buescher, but I'm a little disappointed, honestly, that Martin Truex Jr. didn't win this race. Do you know why? Because I've sat over here more times than not the past couple of years and talked about how I miss hard, clean, respectful racing, how I am somewhat nostalgic for, the previous generation of the Mark Martins and the Matt Kenseths. I want to see clean, respectful racing win for a change. Denny Hamlin roughed up Kyle Larson. He got a trophy. Martin Truex chose to race Chris Buescher clean and fairly. He finishes second. Clean racing may have lost a key battle today. Now, big picture, Chris Buescher will remember how Martin Truex Jr. raced him. He said it in his post-race interview that, hey, credit to Martin, he raced me really, really cleanly. I'm sure in the future, there's a good chance Chris Buescher will return that favor. Larson, next time he sees Hamlin racing for a win, will probably rough Hamlin up if given the opportunity. So, maybe big picture, clean racing can still win the war. They may have lost the battle today, but clean racing can still win out in the end. We'll have to wait and see, but I just thought that was worth mentioning. Martin Truex Jr. is one of the holdovers from the previous generation who has not, jumped the shark and completely changed his driving etiquette. He still races like it's 2008. And I kind of respect that. And I want to see him do well racing like that. Anyway, I want to talk a little bit more about how that race finished. For sure, Truex was the better car. I don't think he was way better than Chris Buescher. I think he was a little bit better than Chris Buescher. But Chris Buescher took advantage of the fairly narrow Michigan groove. The fast lane is the middle. You can kind of run the bottom. You can kind of run a half lane top. But if you run that middle, kind of shade both ends, it's easy to take second place's air away, get them either loose or more than likely tight. Truex complained after the race that it was really just dirty air. Clean air versus dirty air. He was not able to pass the leader on equal tires. And he has a point. He does. People are going to say, oh, he's just complaining. Yeah, drivers love to complain. He is. But he also has a point. It's very tough to pass. It was very tough all day to pass the leader on equal tires. That one run in stage 2 when Truex passed everybody, he had a little bit fresher tires than I think almost everyone he was racing against. Or at the very least, his car was way better. I mean, Daniel Suarez had a decent run going, but he was leading at the end of stage 2. I don't think Daniel Suarez was as fast as Chris Buescher. This race was honestly won during the opening stint of stage 3 when Chris Buescher and Tyler Reddick kind of took over the lead. They took control of this race and were almost like two-car tandem drafting with each other. Like they weren't trying too hard to pass one another. They were just, staying in line on the straightaways, getting some clean air in the turns, getting back in line on the straightaways. And that two-car draft allowed them to maintain like a 5-6 second lead over Truex, who rocketed his way through the field. But once he got to third, he couldn't really catch them. It was 2 against 1. And at Michigan, the draft plays a role. They were able to maintain, again, a 5 to 6 second gap. So then when they went to make their final green flag pit stop, even though they had to hold for an extra 3 or 4 seconds to get more fuel in the car, they still held the lead. Like Buescher went in with a 5-second lead. He came out with like a 1-second lead. And those 4 seconds were lost because he had to take extra fuel. But if he hadn't two-car tandem with Reddick, that gap wouldn't have been large enough. He would not have been able to come out ahead of Truex. That's where this race was won, was Reddick and Chris Buescher, either intentionally or unintentionally, working together to maintain a healthy gap over Truex. So I thought that was interesting and didn't really get talked about enough. Speaking of Tyler Reddick, let's move on to Tyler Reddick now, and then we'll look at the top finishers. I know I'm rambling a lot. Tyler Reddick probably should have won this race. Just going to be honest. He had a really good car. I love that Rocket League paint scheme. That was cool. But the pit crew threw it away. Once again, a loose wheel on the final cycle of green flag pit stops. Almost brought the caution out. Maybe should have. NASCAR was slow on the switch, but ruined Tyler Reddick's day. He had at least a top 5 run going. He would have cycled out ahead of both Chris Buescher and Martin Truex Jr. So you know how this race ended with Buescher versus Truex? Imagine Tyler Reddick being ahead, being in front of both of them. I think Tyler Reddick wins this race if his pit crew does not choke once again. 23XI Racing had problems last year, but those were Joe Gibbs Racing pit crews. Remember, there were some swaps going on with like Christopher Bell's crew at one point in the season. Denny Hamlin then decided that this year they would train, develop, hire their own pit crews. So now, if I'm not mistaken, 23XI's pit crews are their own guys. They are exclusive to that team. And things have not gotten much better. If anything, they've gotten worse. I've lost track of the number of times Reddick and his team have taken themselves out of contention due to some avoidable mistake. Today was perhaps the most glaring, though, at least in recent memory, especially because on the replay, it almost looked like the right rear changer knew there was a problem, started to wave everybody down and then just said, oh no, that's too much time. Let's finish the stop. It's like, there's a problem. Fix the problem. Take the L right there and lose a few seconds. Get the thing right. Instead, they ruin their day completely. That's just inexcusable. And, Reddick had a little, he chewed him out over the radio. I don't always love drivers, berating their crew over, public radio feed. But I mean, in this case, they kind of deserve it. This is professional sports. You got to perform. And his pit crew has not performed consistently this year. Same can be said about Bubba Wallace, quite honestly. He finished this race 18th. I don't know what happened. I thought he was going to run top 10. It looked like that's where he was going to cycle out. Did they have a slow stop? I don't want to throw Bubba Wallace's pit crew under the bus without knowing for sure, but that team has had issues in the past. Not sure if that affected them today. 23XI Racing, they're new at this whole developing your own pit crew thing, and maybe that's showing because that cost Tyler Reddick a win today, I think. Now let's take a look at the top finishers real quick. I haven't even mentioned the third place finisher yet, Denny Hamlin. I think Hamlin was also just a notch below Truex in terms of raw speed, but after today's race, I think Martin Truex Jr. and Denny Hamlin are the clear championship favorites. And I know Michigan shares no similarities with Phoenix, but it's just every week at this point. I think both Hamlin and Truex are in the top 5, top 3, regardless of whether it's Richmond, Pocono, Michigan. They're always in contention. They're just the fastest all-around teams right now. Chris Buescher has made some noise the last couple weeks. Kyle Larson, kind of a quiet day, still finished top 5. Can never count Larson out. We didn't really get to see what Kyle Busch and William Byron had this weekend because they both wrecked out early on. Kyle Busch maybe being a little too aggressive. Car snapped loose on him. He backed it into the fence on Sunday. William Byron at the end of stage 1 got into the outside wall. His day was over early too. But I think Busch, Byron, both potential championship frontrunners. Truex and Hamlin, though, just all-around execution, they seem to be the best. They get top 5 finishes. Brad Keselowski, I mentioned, gets another top 5. RFK, when one of those cars is good, usually the other one's good as well. So congrats to them. Another fantastic weekend. Bounce back weekend for Trackhouse. They've struggled to find consistency really since Nashville, but I talked to Daniel Suarez a couple days ago and he felt like they'd be fine this weekend. Like there's something about the shorter ovals that they've just kind of missed it on. The bigger tracks like this, that's still Trackhouse's bread and butter. And, both Chastain and Daniel Suarez ran pretty well today. Big day for Daniel Suarez when we look at the playoff bubble picture. Couple more Fords in the top 10. Kevin Harvick, Ryan Blaney, good days for them. And Eric Jones gets himself a top 10. Legacy Motor Club needs something to go right. Eric Jones at his home track gets a solid result. Ty Gibbs finished 11th, and Christopher Bell came back to finish 13th after crashing out racing for the lead yesterday during the early portions of the race. I said crashed out. I thought he'd crashed out. The rear of that car was buckled in, looked damaged. I thought there was no chance that car makes minimum speed or even makes it to the finish. Christopher Bell finished 13th with that car. I don't know how that team did it. Adam Stevens, that whole group deserves a ton of credit. Bell is another team, kind of like, Tyler Reddick, both Toyotas. I think they're really fast. I think they're just as or almost as fast as Truex and Denny Hamlin, but they both seem to lack execution, whether it's the pit crew, the drivers, a mix of both. I feel like both Bell and Reddick have been full of unrealized potential this season. Decent day for Austin Cindric. I do want to give him a shout out, top 12 finish, although he did squeeze, was it McDowell? Who did he squeeze into the wall? I think it was Todd Gillen got squeezed into the wall. That jacked up the field on a restart and caused Alex Bowman to get hooked from behind. Let's talk about some of the other drivers that crashed out. Alex Bowman really did well this weekend, earned 10 stage points. Not quite as many as Daniel Suarez earned. Suarez earned 14 stage points. Good job, Daniel. Bubba Wallace out-earned both of them with 16 points earned in the stages. But, Alex Bowman did pretty good. He seemed to have a fast car capable of running top 5 or at the very least top 10. Entered this day, I think 42 points out, 44 maybe. Still within range of pointing his way into the playoffs, although he needed a great run today. Looked like he had it going. Bowman gets caught up in a wreck. I mean, really just not his fault, just victim of circumstances at that point. So Bowman now at more than 40 points below the cut line. Let me go ahead and pull up the point standings. Yes, Bowman is 44 points out. Behind him now is Chase Elliott. Chase Elliott's actually behind Austin Cindric now as well. Chase Elliott crashed out yesterday early in the race. A flat right rear tire sent the 9 car into the wall and into the garage. I don't think there's anything the driver could do. We saw 2 or 3 flat right rears occur throughout yesterday and today, both portions of the race. So maybe just a setup issue. Maybe Chase Elliott ran over some sort of debris because shortly after Elliott's incident, Michael McDowell was on pit road with damage to his nose and splitter. Maybe thought he hit some debris, maybe hit the same thing Chase Elliott hit. So either way, I don't think there's anything the driver did wrong. Maybe the team missed it. But either way, now Chase Elliott for sure. And I think we can say the same about Alex Bowman. They're in must-win territory with 3 races to go. I'm still confident in Chase Elliott because Watkins Glen is 2 weeks from now. I think Chase Elliott will be fine at Indy. I think he'll be good at Daytona. The Hendrick cars are usually decent at Daytona. But as long as Watkins Glen is still on the schedule, I still feel confident in Chase Elliott. I don't feel as confident in Alex Bowman, unfortunately. Today was really a gut punch for 48 fans, I think. I know he finished 18th. I don't know what happened to him at the end, but it was still a good points day for Bubba Wallace. He's now 58 points ahead of 17th. More importantly, though, he's 55 points ahead of Ty Gibbs. So that protects him against a new winner. If, say, AJ Allmendinger down here were to go win Indianapolis this weekend, I mean, Bubba Wallace still has a huge points lead over Ty Gibbs. So another good points day for Bubba Wallace. Ty Gibbs now, I just mentioned him, he's now 16th. Boy, what a rally for the rookie the past few weeks. He's now 3 points ahead of Michael McDowell, who, man, back-to-back weeks of just letting points get away. At Richmond last week, I did not agree with Michael McDowell and team's aggressive strategy. I think it cost them a ton of potential points, quite honestly. And then today, I don't know how exactly they got that damage on their nose, but they were at a disadvantage the rest of the race. I imagine that hurt their speed. They just didn't perform. They really weren't competitive. So now they're outside looking in, but still a slim margin. And he's got good tracks coming up for him, but another, I mentioned a gut punch for Bowman, kind of a gut punch for McDowell. You felt like he had a decent cushion coming in. Daniel Suarez made up a ton of points, did well in the stages, got a top 10 in the race itself, is only 5 points back. Look how close this cut line is. And with 2 road courses coming up, guess who's good at road courses? Daniel Suarez is good at road courses. Ty Gibbs is good at road courses. Michael McDowell is good at road courses. And of course, AJ Allmendinger is good at road courses. AJ Allmendinger finds himself still 24 points out. That team's in an interesting spot. Do they go for stage points next weekend and the weekend after, or do they chase the win and the win only? Man, I don't know what I'd do in their spot, because 24 is a lot of points to make up, but there's 10 points up for grabs in each stage. Depending on everyone's sort of itinerary, you could make up a lot of points before you even get to the checkered flag. So I don't know what AJ Allmendinger should do. What I do know is that his team can't, be leaving wheels loose like they did at the end of today's race. I don't know where AJ was going to finish, probably like around 20th. I think he ended up finishing like 26th. Yes, 26th today after an issue on his final green flag pit stop. You can't make that mistake the next 2 weeks. These next 2 weeks will define AJ Allmendinger's entire season. So, good luck to him. But there's a look at the playoff bubble. 3 races to go until the playoffs begin. Chase Elliott, Alex Bowman, must-win territory. I think it's official at this point. I think I hit on everything I wanted to. Let's put this race on the Groovy gauge. I really enjoyed it. Again, I saw, the first 75 laps in person. I saw the final 125 on TV. I thought it was a great race. I'm going to go 90% for Michigan. The rain stinks. The rain really does stink. I don't have data in front of me. I think there was a tweet I saw from, I want to say Jonathan Feld. I think that's how you pronounce his name, from the racing experts. Yeah, he tweeted that 17 of the 25 NASCAR race weekends this year have been impacted by weather in some way, shape, or form. Now, that's not all cup races, but there are quite a few cup disruptions in there. I was impressed with Michigan's facility. I'd never been before. I was trying to film one of my at-track vlogs, but with the weather coming and going, I really didn't get as much footage as I wanted to. So, I don't know that I'll be able to share that video with you guys, but just my quick thoughts. I thought it was really impressive. Sure, the track is very rural. It's not really that close to any big cities. It's, I think, more than an hour or so outside of Detroit. So I really wasn't sure what to expect, but the facility seemed really well maintained, plenty of amenities. Overall, I thought it was good. I can see why Michigan fans love to come back every single year. And for the Xfinity race on Saturday, I went up close to the fence near the entrance to turn 1 and got to see them at full speed, zipping by. I love short tracks. I love the feeling of the cars just being right there in your lap. But there is something to be said about these bigger racetracks where the speeds are intense. It's a spectacle. It is a spectacle. 90% for me. I thought this was a great race. Considering this race ended on like a 70 lap long green flag run and we still got a really close 1v1 finish, I think that's really great. I glossed over the end of stage 2 when Truex made that charge and beat Suarez by this much. This race had a lot of exciting moments. I was expecting another Martin Monday, and he's known for winning boring races, but no, today's race was anything but that. And Truex, unfortunately, came up just a tad short. Good drama leading into the playoffs. RFK, now a force to be reckoned with. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. What were your thoughts on today's Michigan race? Today and yesterday's Michigan race. But that is going to do it for this episode. Leave a like if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new to the channel. We talk NASCAR almost every single day on this channel. Thank you to my Patreon supporters for your very generous support. It's thanks to you guys I'm able to go out to Michigan, tracks like that, and visit with fans, cover the races in person, talk directly to drivers, share some of those clips with you like I did earlier this weekend. Would not be possible without your support. I will see you all again tomorrow. My schedule is going to be a little weird this week because I'm moving and got other things going on, but we'll talk again very soon. There's lots still to discuss. We still have to talk about Truex extending his deal with Joe Gibbs Racing. We'll talk about that tomorrow. Have a great rest of your, almost the rest of your weekend. Have a great rest of your Monday, folks. Take care.